I heard the knocking before I was even awake, a soft tapping that didn't match the storm raging outside. At first, I thought it was part of a dream, but then it came again, faint and uneven. The kind of knock a person made when they had almost no strength left. My eyes opened to darkness, the kind that comes before dawn, thick and cold. The wind outside howled against the stone walls of my mansion like it wanted to tear them down. No one came to my hill uninvited. No one even tried, not unless they wanted trouble. But this knock didn't sound like trouble. It sounded like desperation. I pulled on my coat and stepped into the hallway. The floors were cold under my feet, and every painting on the walls watched me as I passed. My head of security met me at the staircase, his face tense in a way I'd rarely seen. "Sir," he said carefully, "there's someone at the gate. A kid. She won't leave. A child, in this storm, in my territory." None of it made sense. I didn't bother answering him. I pushed open the front door, and the cold hit me like a slap. The snow was already up to my ankles, the wind throwing it sideways, stinging my face. The guards followed at a distance, unsure if they should step in or stay back. Through the thick curtain of white, I saw her. A tiny figure pressed against the iron gate, her hands wrapped around the bars like she was holding herself upright with the last of her strength. Her coat was thin, barely a coat at all, her small boots half buried in snow. Ice clung to her hair, her eyelashes, her cheeks. She couldn't have been more than 6. When I reached the gate, she lifted her head. Her lips were blue. Her voice came out cracked and fragile. "Sir, my mom didn't come home last night." Nothing in my life had prepared me for those words. I'd heard people beg, scream, bargain. But I'd never heard a child say something like that in a storm that could kill a grown man. I unlocked the gate myself. My hands didn't shake often, but they shook then. She stumbled forward. I caught her before she fell, and she weighed almost nothing, a bundle of frozen bones and a heartbeat. "How long were you walking out here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even, gentle. She tried to speak, but her teeth were chattering too hard. So I picked her up and carried her through the snow, the wind beating against my back like it was trying to pull her away from me. Inside the mansion, heat surrounded us, but she kept shaking, her fingers still curled into my coat. The housekeeper rushed in with blankets, wrapping them around her little body with fast, gentle hands. The kid's breathing began to slow. Her cheeks regained the faintest touch of color. I pulled a chair close and sat beside her. Her eyes followed me, wide, scared, trusting me in a way I wasn't sure I deserved. "What's your name?" I asked. She swallowed and whispered, "Iris." "Iris," I repeated softly. "You said your mom didn't come home. Where does she work?" Her small fingers tightened in the blanket. "At the Royal Diamond. She serves drinks. She always calls before she leaves. Always. But last night she didn't. And the phone never rang." Her voice cracked. "We ran out of heating oil. It was cold. I waited and waited. Then it got darker and darker, and she never came. The Royal Diamond, my casino, my territory, my responsibility, my jaw clenched before I could stop it. Something wasn't right. A bartender collapsing or disappearing wasn't something that slipped past my notice, unless someone made sure it did. "So you walked here?" I asked. She nodded. "Mrs. Chen next door said you're the boss of everything. She said if my mom is missing, you're the only one who could find her. The only one." I'd heard a lot of things in my life. Fear, respect, threats. But I'd never heard belief spoken so simply, so confidently, from someone so small. I stood and took out my phone. The manager of the Royal Diamond answered on the second ring. "Sir?" "One of my bartenders didn't make it home," I said, my voice turning sharp, the way it did when things started sliding out of line. "Find her. 15 minutes. Call me back." I ended the call before he could respond. Iris watched me with hope so raw it felt like a weight on my chest. Something inside me, something I thought had died years ago, shifted. Minutes passed like hours. Then my phone rang. "Sir, she's here. We found her. She collapsed in the back room. Fever. She's barely conscious." The room tilted for a moment, and I didn't know why. I just knew Iris's mom had been alone, sick, suffering, and no one had seen it, except her daughter. I didn't wait for details. I grabbed my keys. "Iris," I said, kneeling in front of her. "I'm going to find your mother. I'm bringing her back." Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, brave in a way that broke something inside me. Before I walked out into the snow again, she whispered so quietly I almost didn't hear it, "Please bring her home." And for the first time in my life, I made a promise with my whole heart. I will. Snow hit the windshield in heavy sheets as I drove down the hill, the storm thick enough to erase the road. I pushed the SUV harder than I should have, but every second felt too long. Iris's small voice kept echoing in my head. Her mother didn't come home. She didn't call. She always called. The Royal Diamond sat at the edge of my territory, lights still glowing faintly from the night before. When I pulled into the empty lot, the manager stood waiting at the back entrance, pale and shaking like he expected to be fired, or worse. "She's inside, sir," he said quickly, leading me down the employee hallway. "We found her in the break room. She never made it out. The night supervisor, he didn't check." "Save it," I said. "Show me." He pushed open a small door, and the warm air that rushed out hit me with the smell of sickness and sweat. On the worn couch lay a woman curled into herself, half-conscious, her breathing shallow and uneven. Her skin was flushed with fever. Her hair was damp with sweat. Her hands trembled as if her body was fighting a losing battle. For a moment I stood still. This was the woman whose daughter had walked through a blizzard. This was the mother Iris believed I could save. I stepped forward, kneeling beside her. Her eyelids fluttered open. Her gaze drifted, unfocused, like she couldn't see me but sensed someone was there. "Iris," she whispered weakly. The name cracked in her throat. "I have to get home." "She's waiting." "You're not going anywhere on your feet," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But your daughter is safe. She's warm." Her eyes met mine for the briefest second. Pain, fear, relief. They flickered across her face like flashes of light before her eyes slid closed again. I didn't hesitate. I lifted her into my arms. She was light, not just physically, but in the heartbreaking way that people become when they've been fighting too hard for too long. As I carried her out, the staff moved out of my path instantly. They had never seen me carry anyone. They knew what that meant. Something had crossed a line inside me. I didn't care. In the SUV, I laid her gently across the back seat and covered her with my coat. She mumbled through her fever, reaching weakly for something. I caught her hand. "She's okay," I said quietly. "Your little girl is okay." Her fingers relaxed. Her breathing steadied. For the rest of the drive, I kept one eye on the road and one on the mirror, watching her chest rise and fall, hoping it wouldn't stop. When I reached the hospital, I parked right at the emergency entrance. I didn't bother with rules or signs. I carried her inside, and the triage nurse jumped to her feet the moment she saw us. "She's burning up," I said. "Found her collapsed. Fever, exhaustion, long exposure to cold." They got her onto a gurney. They hooked her to machines. They pushed IV fluids into her arm. I stood there longer than I should have, watching her disappear behind the double doors, watching them take her into a space where I had no power. A nurse turned to me. "Are you family?" It was a simple question, but it hit like a punch. Family? No, I had never been that to anyone. I hesitated. "I'm the person who found her." She nodded, but didn't soften. Rules were rules. "You can wait, but you may not be allowed updates without permission." I nodded, stepped aside, and waited. Minutes turned into hours. My phone buzzed constantly. Business, meetings, issues that needed my attention. I ignored every single one. For the first time in my life, nothing mattered except one woman fighting for her life behind those doors. When the doctor finally walked into the waiting room, I stood so fast my chair scraped across the floor. "She's stable," the doctor said. If she had arrived any later, she wouldn't have made it. Severe influenza, dehydration, and her immune system is depleted. She needs rest, fluids, and warmth. My shoulders dropped with a relief I didn't expect, but, the doctor continued, she keeps asking for her daughter. She's confused and trying to get out of bed. Of course she was. A mother's fear doesn't wait for strength. I'll bring her daughter here, I said immediately. That would help her, the doctor agreed. I sent a message to my housekeeper. She replied at once. On our way. When they arrived, Iris didn't wait for the car to stop. She burst out and ran straight into my arms. Did you find her? She cried, clutching my coat with both hands. Is she alive? Quote. I knelt down to her height, meeting her eyes. She's alive, I said. She's very sick, but she's getting help. She threw her arms around my neck, hugging me so tightly I could barely breathe. It stunned me. It softened something inside me that had never softened for anyone. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for finding my mama. Her faith, her relief, her small shaking body. Everything in that moment broke me open in a way nothing else had. I lifted her into my arms and carried her inside. Together we walked down the hospital hallway. Nurses smiled when they saw Iris, like hope itself was glowing around her. When the doctor pulled aside the curtain to her mother's room, Iris let out a soft cry. Mama! She climbed onto the bed so carefully, curling against her mother's side, holding her like she'd never let go again. The woman's arms came up weakly, hugging her daughter with trembling hands. I stepped back, giving them space. The mother looked at me over Iris's head. Her eyes were tired, full of fear and gratitude and questions she couldn't put into words. I didn't answer any of them. Not yet. One step at a time. They needed safety first. Warmth, a home, a chance to breathe. And I was going to make sure they had it, no matter what it cost. The next 48 hours passed in a strange quiet. I wasn't used to sitting still. I wasn't used to waiting. But every time I stepped out of the hospital room, I found a reason to return. The mother, her name was Emily, I learned from the hospital chart, slept most of the time. But every time she woke, her first words were the same. Where's Iris? Not food, not water, not pain. Her daughter, every single time. Iris stayed by her side, talking quietly, telling her stories about the house, the fire, the blankets, the hot chocolate she had by the mansion's enormous fireplace. Emily listened with weak smiles, her eyes slipping shut before Iris finished half her sentences. I stayed in the hallway most of the time, watching through the window. I didn't want to intrude on moments that belonged to them. But I couldn't walk away either. On the morning of the third day, the doctor came to me with a clipboard. She's doing much better, the doctor said. Fever is under control, fluids helped. She still needs rest. A lot of it. She can't go back to work, I said before the doctor even finished. Definitely not, the doctor agreed. She'll need 2 weeks minimum. Maybe more. 2 weeks with no income. Another storm hit me, this time not snow, but the cold math of survival. Rent, bills, food. Everything would fall apart again the moment she walked out of that hospital door. I already knew what I was going to do. And I knew she would hate accepting it. When Emily was discharged, Iris bounced beside her wheelchair, excitement filling the air around her. Emily looked exhausted, pale, thin, but alive. She kept one shaky hand on her daughter's shoulder like she needed to feel her constantly. The nurse handed me a thick stack of papers, home instructions and medications. She'll need help walking for a few days. I nodded and pushed the wheelchair toward the exit. The closer we got outside, the more tense Emily became. She recognized the long black SUV waiting at the curb. She recognized me holding the door open. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. We're going to your place again? Yes, I said simply. Her hand tightened around the armrest. Why? I met her stare, watching the fear, the pride, the confusion tangled in her expression. She was a fighter, a survivor. Someone who had learned the world didn't give her anything unless it wanted something back. You need a warm place, I said. You need rest. You need food. You need time. Your daughter needs stability. I have the space. And you expect what in return? She asked quietly. Nothing today. Her eyes widened. She didn't believe me. I didn't blame her. In the back seat of the SUV, Iris held her mother's hand the whole drive up the hill. The snow had stopped, leaving a clean, white world behind. When the mansion appeared through the trees, Emily let out a slow breath. Her body shifted with nervousness she couldn't hide. "It's too much," she murmured. "We don't belong in a place like this." Quote, "Right now you belong where you'll heal," I said, "and that place is here." Inside, the housekeeper greeted them with warm blankets and a room ready in the east wing. Emily stood in the doorway, staring at the freshly made bed, the soft rugs, the quiet lighting. This is bigger than our whole apartment," she whispered. Iris darted inside, bouncing on her toes. "Mama, look, there's a window seat, and books, and a big bathroom, and the bed is so soft." Emily touched the bedspread with trembling fingers. She didn't sit down, she didn't relax. She looked like she might run. I stepped back, speaking gently. "This room is yours until you're strong again. No timeline, no pressure, no debt." She turned toward me. "People like you don't do things for free." The truth in her voice cut deeper than any insult. "I'm not doing this for free," I said. "I'm doing it for Iris." For a moment, everything in the room went still. Emily's eyes softened, her shoulders lowering just enough to show she'd heard me. "I won't let her grow up cold again," I added quietly. "Not as long as I can stop it." She sat on the bed finally, slowly lowering herself onto the soft blanket. Her hand drifted to her chest, touched the thin fabric of her shirt like she was grounding herself. "I don't want charity," she whispered. "Then don't take it," I said. "Work for me when you're well. Help wherever you want in the house. Or don't, the choice is yours. But heal first. Everything else can wait." She looked up at me with tired, guarded eyes. "Why do you care so much?" Quote, I didn't know how to explain it. I had ruled my world with steel and fear. I had never cared about strangers. I had never carried anyone. I had never been needed. Until a little girl showed up at my gate with frozen hands and a breaking voice. "Because your daughter walked through a storm for you," I said. "And because she believes I can protect you." Emily's eyes shone. She looked away quickly, wiping at her face. Iris climbed into her lap, careful not to hurt her. "Mama, we're safe now," she whispered. "He found you. He kept his promise." Quote, Emily kissed the top of her daughter's head, her voice shaking. "Yes, baby, he did." I stepped out quietly, letting them have the moment. But as I closed the door, I realized something that shook me more than the storm did. I didn't just want them safe. I wanted them here, with me. And that terrified me more than anything else ever had. Winter settled around the mansion in a soft hush, the kind that made the world feel untouched. Days passed slowly, gently, in a way I had never allowed my life to move before. My world had always been sharp edges, late nights, endless meetings, and decisions that carried consequences measured in blood. But now, each morning began the same way, with the sound of Iris's footsteps running down the hallway, with the quiet from the east wing that told me Emily was still resting, still healing, with a feeling in my chest I didn't recognize. Peace. For the first time in years, there was peace. Emily regained strength day by day. She walked the halls wrapped in soft sweaters. The housekeeper insisted she wear. She helped in the kitchen, despite my objections. She made tea in the evenings. She laughed sometimes. Quiet, surprised laughter, like she had forgotten what it felt like. And every time she laughed, something inside me shifted. Her presence changed the house. Iris changed it even more. She filled the empty rooms with drawings and stories, with bright questions no one knew how to answer, with energy that made the staff smile and look younger. She made me look human. One night, maybe 2 weeks after they moved into the mansion, I found Emily standing on the balcony outside the library. The sky was clear, and the moon spilled silver across the snow. She didn't hear me approach. Her hair moved gently in the cold breeze. Her hands rested on the railing as she stared out over the city below. "You shouldn't be outside too long," I said. She didn't jump or startle. She just turned slightly, her breath forming a cloud in the cold air. I'm feeling stronger, she said softly. Stronger than I have in a long time. I joined her at the railing. The night was quiet. The world below looked small from this height. Far away. Safe. You've given us more than a place to stay, she said after a moment. You've given my daughter warmth, food, safety. I don't know how to thank you for that. You don't need to thank me. She looked at me then, really looked. Maybe not, but I want to. Her eyes held something new. Trust, maybe, but something else too. Something I hadn't let myself hope for. I stepped closer without thinking. The cold air carried the faint scent of her shampoo. She watched me with a steadiness that made my pulse change rhythm. I need to ask you something, she said quietly. Ask. Her breath shook. What do you want from us, truly? I didn't answer immediately, not because I didn't know, but because the truth felt big, sharp, fragile. In my world, showing desire was showing weakness. But Emily didn't live in my world. And the world she and Iris brought into my home had already started changing mine. I want you safe, I said first. She nodded. I know that, but what else? Quote, I let out a slow breath. I hesitated, searching for words I wasn't used to speaking. I want peace. I want something real. And for the first time in my life, I want a future that doesn't feel empty. Her eyes softened, but she didn't look away. I want you here, I said quietly. Both of you. Not because you need a place, because I want you in mine. Emotion rippled across her face. Fear, hope, disbelief, longing, all of it at once. Emily, I continued, you and Iris walked into my life on a storm morning when I didn't know I needed anything. But now I can't imagine this house without you. She pressed a hand to her chest, steadying her breath. You're asking for something big, she whispered. Something that could break all of us. Then don't let it break, I said. Stay. Build something with me. Let this be your home. She shook her head once, not in refusal, but in disbelief. You barely know me. I know enough, I said. I know you fight until you collapse. I know you love your daughter so much you'd walk through hell for her. I know you've survived more than most people could handle. And I know that when you smile, something inside me shifts in ways I never expected. A tear slid down her cheek and she wiped it quickly, embarrassed. Don't hide that, I said softly. Not from me. The wind grew colder, but she stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. If I say yes, everything changes. Iris's life changes. Mine too. She'll grow up in your world, a world I don't understand. Then I'll teach you, I said. And I'll protect you from the parts no one should understand. She took a breath. And if I say no? My chest tightened. Then I'll still make sure you're safe. I won't trap you here. But I hope you won't leave. Silence stretched between us, a long one, a heavy one. And then, Iris loves you, she whispered. The words struck harder than any bullet ever had. She trusts you. That matters more to me than anything else. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Emily reached out and placed her hand on mine. Small, warm, real. You kept your promise to her, she said, and I think you'll keep your promises to me too. My heart pounded. Then she said it, the words that changed everything. We'll stay. I closed my fingers around hers. She didn't pull away. She stepped into my arms slowly, carefully, like testing the strength of something new. I wrapped my coat around her, holding her tight against the cold. For the first time in my life, holding someone felt like holding a future. Inside the house, warm light spilled from the windows. Iris's laughter drifted faintly from upstairs. Snow kept falling quietly across the grounds. And, on that balcony, in the soft glow of winter night, the dangerous man who had built an empire realized he had finally found what he didn't know he'd been searching for. A family. A home, a place to belong.